shit! Stay away!
Resident Evil Requiem has arrived, eager to test your mettle as both Grace and Leon. And much like its modern predecessors, boasts a decent playtime as well. But just how long is it? Here we'll let you know exactly how many hours it took different members of the IGN team to finish the game, and what they prioritized doing with their time. Shy of just under 9 hours, my first time playthrough with Resident Evil Requiem consisted of meticulously hunting down every single Mr. Raccoon collectible, reading as many files as I could, despite still missing 3 of them somewhere, and relishing in the blood-soaked glory of Leon's vast yet costly arsenal. If I wasn't so engrossed in exploring every nook and cranny of the Rhodes Hill Center and beyond for secrets, I'm sure I could have shaved an hour or 2 off my playtime. But much like my time with the Resident Evil 4 remake, I dove into my insanity playthrough right after hitting credits, and blitzed through it in 4 hours and a bit. Although, to Grace's dismay, I did get munched on a few times by the many monstrosities that stalk the care center's halls.
I hit credits 16 hours into my playthrough of Resident Evil Requiem, after choosing what I assumed to be the good ending. I played through the game on standard, modern difficulty, the hardest option I could out of the gate, without having to deal with ink ribbons taking up my inventory space. I was quite thorough during my playthrough, making sure I got all the antique coins and all the safes codes, and trying not to leave anything behind. And when I got to Raccoon City later in the game, I spent a decent amount of time revisiting the classic locations and soaking in the nostalgia. I did have an advantage though, which I assume might have tacked on an hour or 2 onto my playtime. I'd previously played the majority of the Rhodes Hill Center as Grace for IGN's preview of the game, so when it came to that section, I already knew what I needed to find and where it was hidden, so that certainly sped up the early hours for me. So far, I've only finished the game once, but I definitely plan to dive back in for an insanity run and see what I've missed.
It took me just over 10 hours to roll credits on Resident Evil Requiem, however that was to arrive at the shorter and what I consider to be the worst of its 2 possible endings. Man, I hate that ending so much! So I immediately reloaded my save game to play through the other, better ending, which added close to another 30 minutes onto my playtime. I opted to play Requiem on the standard, modern difficulty setting, mainly because I didn't want to be restricted to using ink ribbons in order to save my game during Grace's sections like you are on the standard classic setting. As the parent of 2 young kids who are liable to disrupt me at any moment and for no good reason at all, I need to have the ability to save my game without any restrictions. However, I am now playing through a second time on standard classic and taking my time with it a bit more. I've still got a number of small things like notes and Mr. Raccoon bobbleheads to track down, as well as a few areas here and there tucked away that I didn't fully explore the first time through. I'm too much of a coward to tackle the game a 3rd time on the insanity difficulty setting, however if Capcom ends up adding a mercenaries mode to Requiem at a later date, I'll come charging back harder than a zombie chef with the smell of blood in his nostrils.
I completed Resident Evil Requiem in exactly 11 hours, and if you're planning to do a pretty regular playthrough, I expect you'll clock up a similar playtime. While I didn't scour every last corner, bookshelf and drawer for the most fiendishly hidden treasures and lore drops, I was reasonably thorough in my exploration of the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center and the locations that await beyond it. I scavenged enough currency to buy a healthy selection of upgrades, ensuring both Grace and Leon were well equipped for the dangers they faced, but by the time credits rolled, there were still guns that could be further modified and stats that could be improved. I unlocked some of the safes, but there are still several left to crack in a second playthrough. I read plenty of documents and so learned many of the story's extra details, but there are still mysteries to be solved by finding the papers I missed. 11 hours is pretty typical for a Resident Evil game, but relatively slender compared to many of today's massive RPG-leaning games, and so a second playthrough is certainly on the cards. I not only plan to gather what I missed, but also play with the opposite perspectives of Requiem's default setup. I'm excited to see what exploring Rhodes Hill as Grace in third person is like, and taking on Leon's sections as a first-person shooter. That'll surely clock up another dozen hours.
It took me around 12.5 hours to beat Resident Evil Requiem on the standard classic difficulty setting, where Leon can save the game infinitely at pretty much every save station, while Grace needs to find or craft limited finite ink ribbons like in classic Resident Evil games. I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, and I had a hunch I'd like this game, but I didn't expect to practically adore it, finding myself exploring every inch of it for secrets, collectibles, Easter eggs, and more. Ultimately, I missed a few on my first run through the game and then immediately started a second and third playthrough after initially rolling credits the first time. There are some really fun post-game options tied to beating the campaign with specific parameters like finishing it without using a single healing item, plus a couple of other little challenges I'm excited to try. There's one specific raccoon bobblehead I definitely wouldn't have found without the help of IGN Guides guru Brendan Graber, so if you're a completionist who doesn't want to miss anything on your first trek through the story, be sure to give our guide a look. Then there's the unlockable Insanity difficulty that I absolutely cannot wait to get my butt repeatedly kicked in. All in all, I'll probably put about 40 hours into Resident Evil Requiem, a number that will only go up if Capcom decides to add a Mercenaries mode and additional story DLC post-launch. Hey, I really love this game.
If you enjoyed this video and want even more from Resident Evil Requiem, why not watch our video review? And for everything else Resi, Requiems, and, well, more, you're already in the right place with IGN.
You okay?
Yeah. Thanks.
Leon Kennedy, DSO.
CSO. I'm Grace. Ashcroft. FBI.
FBI. What are you doing here?
Someone kidnapped me.
Victor Gideon.
I don't know.
Well, we should leave. What does Victor want with you?
What?
Grace,
What do you
he
mean?
grabbed you for a reason.
Wait, you're DSO. That's the counter bioterrorism agency, right?
Take this.
You're sure?
You might need it. Now go. Get out of here.